Okay, good evening once again. We are here and we are continuing with distribution. So as I said, with pharmacokinetics, we have four processes. We have absorption, distribution, metabolism, and what excretion. So we are done with absorption. Now we are coming to what distribution. So one may ask, what is distribution? What is distribution? So let's get going. Distribution involves the transport of drug molecules or drug within the body. So the drug is now in the bloodstream. So the blood now distributes the drug across the body. So after the drug is absorbed into the bloodstream, it is carried by the blood or tissue fluid to its site of what pharmacologic action. So once the drug ends in the bloodstream, it is now distributed. It is now what carried to the site of pharmacologic action. As I said, the drug doesn't end in the bloodstream. It goes to where it's supposed to what act. So the process in which the drug now leave the bloodstream to enter into the tissues or to the pharmacological site of action is known as what distribution. So we have distribution. So take note. Distribution is defined as drug movement from the blood to the interstitial space of tissues and from there into the cells. So if you remember your physiology very well, like the system, the organ system or the human system, we start from the molecules, then we come towards a cell, then the cell will come together to form what tissues, and tissue also come together to form what organs, then organs come together to form what organ system, then from there we have what organisms. So the drug now goes into the tissue and sometimes into the cell to act, and when they act at the tissue level or the cellular level, we tend to get all the effect that we are looking for. So there are some drugs we give to stop or to reduce the heart rate. So it means they are acting at the tissue level, but sometimes their action is even from the cellular level. All what I'm trying to say is distribution is what you moving the drug to the site of what action, and the site of action can be in the tissues or it can also be where in the cells. Some can be in the organ, but you know that cells come together to form tissues to form what organs, then organs to what organs system. So drug distribution is movement of drugs to the site of action. Don't forget. Once a drug enters into the bloodstream, it may be distributed into the body fluids. So we've already said that. So the extent of distribution depends on these factors. So the extent at which drug gets distributed depends on these factors that we are going to look at. The blood flow to a particular organ or tissue, then binding to plasma proteins. So take note of the binding to plasma proteins. Then we will explain that. Then we have the PK of the drug and the size of the organ. So we'll be going through this one after that. The lipid solubility. We all know that the more lipid soluble a drug is, the more what absorption. And the PK of the drug, if the drug is acidic and it gets to basic medium, what will happen? If the drug is basic and it gets to acidic medium, what is going to happen? We have dealt with this in depth. So we are going to start with the renal blood flow. So blood flow. Blood flow is one of the important ways in which drug gets distributed or gets to a site of what action. So well-perfused tissues like the heart, the brain, the kidneys, and all that, drug that like organs that receive adequate supply of blood also get what adequate supply of what drugs. That is why when you give a drug by IV and the drug is a wrong drug, the drug gets distributed. Some go to the heart, kidneys, and all that, and it affects the functions of what these organs. So well-perfused tissues or organs achieve high concentration of drugs than poorly perfused tissues. So all what you are saying is drugs like organs or tissue that receive higher quantity of blood supply also receive higher quantity of what drugs, and organs that do not receive high quantity of blood do not also receive high quantity of what drugs. So this is one difference that we are supposed to take note of. And the next thing is protein binding. Protein binding. What is protein binding? Once you take a drug and the drug gets into your bloodstream, we have some proteins in our plasma. One example of proteins that we're going to mention of is the albumin. Albumin is one protein that is found in our plasma. So when a drug enters into your bloodstream, most of the drug get bound to plasma protein, example, albumin. So when a drug binds to a plasma protein, it affects so many things, and that's what we are going to look at. So please take note. Let's look at the next slide and take note of so many things in this slide. And whatever thing that we are going to do now is mostly centered on this slide. So as I said, take note of the slide over here. Okay, so what am I trying to say? Please look at this diagram very well. So this is, let's say, this is your bloodstream, and we have your plasma fluid over here. So this is your bloodstream, and you have your plasma. You know, when you take a blood and it undergoes this centrifugation, it separates the blood into its various compartments. So you have plasma, and also now this is the plasma. And within the plasma, we have what we call plasma proteins. So the objects that I've labeled B are the plasma proteins. So we have plasma proteins, then you have what? A drug. So the drug is the blue thing that you are seeing on your screen. So this is the drug, and this is what? The plasma protein. Okay. When you take in a drug, or when a drug enters into your plasma, most of the drug binds to what we call the plasma protein. So they will come and bind to this drug. So the first that you have to note over here is when a drug binds to plasma protein, one, they become pharmacologically inactive. So take note, drugs that get bound to plasma protein are pharmacologically inactive. Why? We will soon know. So when a drug binds to plasma protein, they become pharmacologically inactive. So we say only the free unbound drugs. So when you look at this diagram very well, we have some of the drugs that are not bounded to the plasma protein. So only the free drug, only the drugs that are not bound to plasma protein can leave the plasma or can leave the cell wall and enter into what? The tissues. So just note, only the free unbound drugs are pharmacologically active because they are the only drug that can diffuse through the cell membrane and enter into where the site of what? Action. Because when a drug binds to the plasma protein, the sites are too big. So look at this hole over here. Look at the spaces in between the blood vessels. Can this plasma protein, this big thing, go through this? No. So only the free unbound drugs, only the free drugs can go and act. And what the plasma protein mostly does is they serve as a temporal storage. So if some of the drug leaves and they go and they act and they get excreted, then some of the drug also detaches from the plasma protein and they also go out and work, and so they'll be doing that until all the drugs leave the plasma protein. So what I am trying to say is when a drug enters into the body, they bind to plasma protein, mostly what? Albumin. When a drug binds to plasma protein, they become pharmacologically inactive because the size, they adapt the size of the plasma protein and they can diffuse across cell membranes. So only the free unbound drugs, only the free unbound drugs become what? Pharmacologically what? Active. And I said drug plasma protein binding sometimes also serve as what? Storage. So it allows some part of the drug to go and act. So when the drug gets excreted, then other drugs that are attached to the plasma protein detaches itself and they also go out until all the drugs leave the plasma protein. So this take out the next slide that says that only the unbound drug can bind to receptors, and only the unbound or unbound drugs can also cross what? Tissue membranes, and only the unbound drugs can be metabolized and what? Excreted. So it's only the unbound drug that gets what? Distributed. mostly it is only the unbound drug. It is what? Only the unbound or the free drugs that get distributed, and they are responsible for what? Clinical effect or what? Toxicity. So I said protein binding allows a part of a drug dose to be stored and released as what needed. So take note of this. Only the unbound drug can bind toward receptors. Only the unbound drug can cause tissue membranes. Then only the unbound drug can be what? Metabolized. Okay. So the availability of protein for binding is reduced in pregnancy, in children, malnutrition, and burns. So in this patient, the plasma protein level is down. So what happens is when you administer a drug, we don't have higher quantity of plasma proteins. So the drug doesn't get binding to these plasma proteins. So you end up having higher quantity of the drug going out to work, and sometimes it leads to high drug toxicities and other injuries. So the availability of protein for binding is reduced in pregnancy, in neonates, malnutrition, and burns. This increases the effect and side effects of some drugs. And I hope maybe you can explain. Maybe when you get a question that says a patient is malnourished and blah, 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 and because of that, the patient is sensitive to so many drugs, and they ask you, why is this patient sensitive to some drugs? You should be able to explain why. Because drugs bind to plasma protein. And when they bind to plasma protein, it allows some of the drugs to be stored and some to go and act. So the drug has been designed in such a way. But if in case there's a reduced plasma protein levels, this means the drug wouldn't get so much protein to bind to. So you get higher quantity of the drug going out into circulation to work. So this is what it means. Then protein binding is a source of what? Drug interaction. Some drug, for example, aspirin also displaces bilirubin from its binding site. So sometimes aspirin, we don't give aspirin to children because they displace this man over which we call bilirubin, and it causes jaundice in children and neonates. So we mostly don't give aspirin to neonates and nursing mothers and also what? Children. Okay. Then volume of distribution. What is volume of distribution? Volume of distribution refers to the extent of drug distribution. We mostly look at how wide the drugs are mostly distributed. Most drugs spread throughout the body's fluid compartment into fatty tissues to some extent. So most drugs get into fatty tissues. And someone will ask, so why? Why are you doing this? What's the reason? Sometimes when people are fat, it informs the decision of physician. There are some drugs, if you are fat, we need to increase the concentration of that or the dosage of that drug in fat people. If not, the drug wouldn't act well because you give the drug and most of the drug goes and bind or hide at these fatty tissues. So sometimes you have to increase the dosage of drug, sometimes in people who are a bit fat. So let's look at this example. I'll come back to this one, but let's look at this example. We have a drug, benzodiazepam. We all know benzodiazepam or diazepam. They have a high volume of distribution and they pass into fatty tissue. When these drugs are discontinued, the effect of withdrawals are prolonged for many people. So this drug mostly gets stored in the fat. So even when the person taking this drug, when we wean them off the drug or we stop or we discontinue the drug in this patient, some of the drug got stored in the fat. So with time, the drug will now leave the fatty tissues and enter into what? Circulation. They will be what? They will redistribute, and the person will still be having this effect that they used to have. That is one thing. Then we have an anesthetic agent we call them nitrous oxide. It's a gas. We mostly give it to patients who are going for surgeries and all that. And if a lady who is fat, we have to increase the dosage of this drug in you. Because if you are fat, it means you have a lot of fat deposits or fat storage. So the drug, when you give the drug first hide and like they go and they bind to these fat tissues. So you end up getting a smaller quantity of the drug in the bloodstream working. So if you want the drug to really work in you, we have to increase the concentration before you can get the effect. This means that after surgery, these people also take much longer time to recover, because all the fat that got stored in the fatty tissues will now be coming back into the circulation. Then that can also prolong maybe recovery of patients who take this drug. So when the anesthetic gas such as nitrous oxide is administered, it will dissolve to some extent into fatty tissues. In women with generous deposits, someone would say voluptuous women, women with heavy weight. So the drug will go and deposit in the adipose tissue. More of the gas will enter into the body fat, leaving less in the circulation. Therefore, such women will require a larger dose to achieve the desired analgesic effect. So in women like this, we have to increase the dose. Also, when the inhalation is discontinued, they will also take longer to recover. Since the drug, when it passes into the body fast, will also take time to clear. So you give the drug, some goes and bind to those receptors in the fat. So you end up getting a lesser amount in circulation. So if you really want to get the effect in fatty liver, you have to increase the dosage. The same thing after we are done, it may take longer time to recover, because all the drug that got stored in the fat will now redistribute. So sometimes they also take longer time to recover. So we mostly say volume of distribution will be high when the lipid solubility of the drug is high. So when the drug is highly lipid soluble, it means the drug can go and bind toward tissues. Then when a drug does not bind to plasma protein, it means the drug can be distributed. And when the drug has high degree of tissue binding. I hope you get what I am trying to say over here. But you try and put all your questions down. And this one is an objective question. This thing over here is an objective question. But try and put all your questions down. Then when we meet, I will know what to do. Or during one of our Zoom meetings, I will answer most of the questions that you are going to be asking. Okay, so that is for volume of distribution. Okay, drug also distributes into the CNS. So distribution of drug into the CNS is also limited. Because if not that, if we allow just anything to enter into our brain, all of us will be mad by now. So distribution of drug into the CNS is limited. And only drugs that are highly lipid soluble or have a specialized transport system can cross the brain. But when there's meningitis, there's disruption in the barrier. So we can even give antibiotics, which is not highly lipid soluble, and they work. So, but if you don't have any disease of the brain and nothing has happened to the barrier, it's very difficult for drugs to cross. And this same man over here, this P glycoprotein, as we mentioned, they pump drugs out of the brain. So they don't just allow anything to enter. You get there and they check you and you're supposed to be entering, then let's say they will sack you. So this man over here, the P glycoprotein, they do a lot of things in the brain, preventing entry of drugs into the brain. Okay. Then some drugs too can cross the placenta barrier. The placenta is a weak barrier, unlike the brain. So certain substances are able to diffuse across the placenta barrier. So if you know a woman who smokes or sometimes drink, they give birth and they have this Down syndrome. Sometimes when you deliver the baby who is maybe a day old looks drunk. Please, if you want to drink or smoke, you can drink and smoke when you are not pregnant. But when you are pregnant, don't drink on the baby and you go and you bring a baby into the world and you can't even go closer to your baby. Please stop that. It's not fine. It's not nice, cry. Then we have some storage depots. Drug also gets to bind to some storage depots. Example, this drug, we don't use it again, but when this COVID came, we went back using the drug chloroquine. They bind to the retina on the eye. So sometimes high dosages can cause damage to the retina because that's where they bind to. And drugs like tetracycline, they bind to bones and teeth. So if we give this tetracycline to a pregnant woman or breastfeeding child, especially in pregnancy, they affect bone formation. Because they bind to the bones, then they affect bone formation. So you give birth, then either your which are urbano, ayalanta, and the bones and forming and all that. So take note of this. And so drug binding to this depot site sometimes affect bioavailability, and we've said bioavailability. So sometimes drug gets stored in these depots. Every time they get redistributed. Let's imagine maybe I used to smoke or I used to do hard drugs. I have stopped, but because the drug got bounded into a storage depot, although I've stopped taking in drugs, I'll go to an embassy that, oh, I am going for a test because I want to travel. They take my blood and say, I am doing drugs. Meanwhile, I've stopped doing drugs. What happened? The drug got stored in these depots. So once I have stopped taking the drug, those that got stored in the storage site now get redistributed. So they get redistributed and you start getting the effect. So we should just take note of that. So when you read the notes, everything is well spelled out in the notes. So that brings us to the end of distribution. The next slide will be on metabolism. So with that, we end for today, and God bless you.